It was a long week. The Huskies were on at 9. I'm just like, fuck it. I can't even watch it. Got the last of the NBA news. I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah, can't have anybody here that EMac went to bed early. That's top secret information.
All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal, the one who goes to bed early, or even earlier than Josh Engelman, now that Josh Engelman is a night owl. But we've got a little NFL live before lock here. This is going to be a fun one. I've got Greg Ehrenberg with me. He is filling in for Matt. Matty B is out for the next week or so, but we got you covered. No worries. Greg does a lot of these shows. In fact, I believe you've done shows earlier today already. Greg, finally, the dynamic duo is back. What's going on here? It's been, I feel like a part of me is missing since we haven't done shows together in a long time.
Well, we did a Sunday Night Football show together like 3 weeks ago, didn't we? Or am I missing?
Was it? They are all kind of running together.
It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago.
Well, I think I was at my other house. I would think I was at my other house. So I think you're correct.
Yeah, EMac, man of many houses. He not just many houses within Florida. He has to have different places. But yeah, pretty good. Had a nice weekend. Hung out with my brother a lot today. Played a little bit of NFL DFS, which didn't go it didn't go terribly, but didn't go great either. Didn't have any live lineups. It was, well, I guess it's still ongoing. So I don't know what the latest is. If Khalil Shakur does stuff, that could potentially be okay for me, but more of a min cash sort of day. Last I looked, I was getting back like 3/4 of my entry fees, which is not a horrific.
It's not bad. Yeah.
Not a horrific GPP slate if you're not going to bink anything. But yeah, other than that, just been chilling this weekend.
Nice deal. All the games are over, so there will be no Khalil Shakur miracle. He was 8 for 70 today.
Okay.
Xavier Worthy actually got a touchdown. That's kind of a rare occurrence, but it looks like Josh Allen had a touchdown at the end on, I think it was 3rd or 4th down, and he ran for about 20 yards. So that closes it out. So no more undefeated teams here in the NFL. We still have the Cleveland Cavaliers are undefeated.
Yeah, this is true. But also the Chiefs, not that they are a bad team by any means, but by point, they're probably, after losing today, they're 10th or 11th in the NFL in point differential. So the idea that they were undefeated while being a team right in the middle of the league in point differential, nearly impossible. So once again, not a bad team, but not a team that should be undefeated. You can't, it's not sustainable to win every game by 2 points.
No, it's like one of those things, and we're going to talk baseball for a second, and then we're going to get to the NFL. It's like the record in one-run games, right? Yeah. Every now and then some team goes like 18-2 in one-run games, and you're just like, that's not going to happen. That's not how the algorithms work for expected win totals. But we're back to expected winning in DFS. We've got a good one tonight here. Fingers crossed. We did get the inactives. Couple minor surprises. Nothing that's really going to move the needle. But we have, as expected, Dobbins, probably not Kamani Vidal is inactive, but so is DJ Chark. Last week he played one snap. That was his first appearance with the Chargers. I can't wait to call him San Diego Chargers on this show. That's a tradition that never gets old. But I thought he was going to play tonight, but he is inactive. That takes out a potential discount dandy. Hayden Hurst, tiny bit of a surprise there. So the Chargers tight ends consolidate a little bit. Stone Smart sort of becomes your flyer punt that might get a target if we're lucky. And then on the Cincinnati side, nothing unexpected there. Charlie Jones still out, but everybody else is active. So that would include Irwin and Jermaine Burton and some of those guys on the periphery. So that is important stuff to note. But let's get into the fun here, Greg, because it's going to be an interesting game here. So I like to do my article. I rank every viable player in the player pool. I do my team free money head-to-heads in the DK Lobby username EMac. And I said number 1 was going to be Jamar Chase. Number 2 is Chase Brown. I ended up with number 3 as my captain, Joe Burrow. Just the way things shook out. How you feeling about that? That was not a direction I expected I would go today.
So is this based on your cash game lineup for
my cash game lineup? Yes. Yeah, I try to pick like the safest, what's going to be, I'll enter it in 3-mans and whatever, but I like to go a little bit different. And I figured it would be Jamar Chase Brown, if you see what I did there before and after. So a little shout out to Wheel of Fortune. But it ended up being Joe Burrow the way the chips fell. So that was a bit of a surprise. Do you think that's a crazy move here as we continue collecting viewers? We can start off with Burrow.
No, it's funny. I've pretty frequently tried to avoid running quarterbacks for showdown slates. And when we're doing these shows too, I pretty frequently tell people that if it's a showdown slate and if it's not a running quarterback, probably not somebody that I really want to be playing all that often in the captain spot. But Joe Burrow's a little bit of an exception. He has been one of the, if not the best passing quarterback in the entire NFL this year. And he's putting up such insane passing numbers that he brings an upside to the table that most non-rushing quarterbacks don't have. If you look at just the last couple of games, for instance, last week, he had 428 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. The week before, he had 251 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. And that is what he's had 3 games this year of 4 more touchdown passes. He has also had a handful of games with 300 plus passing yards, with the 428 yards from last week being the high watermark. So the rushing upside, probably not going to be there. He only has 1 game with 15 or more rushing yards this season. But just because some of those passing yardages have been so massive, yeah, I think you could absolutely make a case for Joe Burrow in the captain spot. He's not my favorite captain for the slate, and I personally wouldn't be playing him in cash games, but I have him in 8% in GPPs, which is way more than I typically would have of a non-rushing QB.
All right. Well, that's why team free money. We just give back to the community. We're doing different things here. So if you guys want to jump in, username EMac there in the DK lobby, just $1, but pride is priceless. So the interesting things about Burrow, 24 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's very, very good. He is 267 yards per game. That ranks 3rd. And then he is averaging almost 36 attempts per game. Now, there was an overtime game in there and a couple other shootouts, but that is also a top 3 figure here. So we have to remember that nobody's averaging over 300 yards per game. Even Patrick Mahomes, who came into this year with just shy of a 300-yard average per game, he's dropped well below that for his career. It's pulled down his numbers. That's how low some of the passing figures have been. So league has been a lot different with how they are running their defenses. Their cover 4, their cover 6 is really expanding well above the cover 2. They're taking the top of the field away. So that just kind of makes things interesting. The other thing that makes this matchup interesting for Burrow is that the Chargers, while they are allowing 192 passing yards per game, they've only allowed 9 touchdowns. That's thin numbers. They held Mahomes to 245 with 1 touchdown and 1 pick. They got Kyler Murray with 145 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. I believe he ran 1 in. So a little bit of a nod there. And then otherwise, it has been nobody that they've played. Gardner Minshew, Justin Fields, Spencer Rattler, Jameis Winston, Will Levis, Bryce Young, Bo Nix. Good game for Bo Nix today. But think about that. That is just terrible collection of quarterbacks. Now they're going to go against Burrow, the flip side is the Chargers didn't have a lot of sacks throughout the season. Good defense. Harbaugh's really got this defense coming together, but they've had 15 sacks in the last 3 games. I'm still going with Burrow. It's kind of an interesting thing here, but I'm giving him the slight edge. Turning our attention to the running back, and then we'll hit pass catchers, but running back for the Bengals, Chase Brown has every single touch over the last 2 weeks. That is unsustainable. Zach Moss out for the season with a neck issue. Brown has played on 80 and 87% of snaps in those 2 games. Kendall Milton was activated from the practice squad. He was cut. Khalil Herbert was traded for, I think it was a 7th round pick, if I remember correctly. He saw the field last week for just 2 snaps. Technically, he touched the ball. It ended up being a fumble on an exchange with Burrow. The fumble was charged to Burrow. So if you go look at his, he doesn't have any touches. They gave that miscue to Burrow. So, he's kind of floating around there. And then Travion Williams, you got to think he's going to show up at some point. Nope. Seven snaps and 1 snap the last couple games. He's getting a little kickoff return duty, but this is looking like it's all Chase Brown at this moment. That can't last forever. Do you think we see any Khalil Herbert tonight, and what sort of percentages are your thoughts there? Because this, I think, is a tough nut to crack here, because you don't want, this is a differentiation moment, I think.
Yeah, probably not. To what you had said before, Chase Brown isn't going to get every single touch all of the games, but he's going to get most of the touches all of the games. And if you look at what our projections are on some of these guys too, it's hard to really want to roster anybody out of the Bengals backfield other than Chase Brown, who is currently, is he my most rostered player? He's the player I get the most of in the captain spot. And yeah, he's my most rostered player overall in the game. I have him in, let's see, what is it overall between the flex and the captain spot? He's in 80% of my lineups. He's very difficult for me to get away from. And another thing too is, considering his price tag, $9,600 in the flex, he's a little bit underpriced considering how elite his fantasy production has been as of late. Like, he projects quite a bit better for us than J.K. Dobbins, and they have a comparable price point. He projects about the, let's see, what's the difference between him and, yeah, he doesn't even project that much differently than Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase is more than $2,000 more expensive. So yeah, it's really hard for me to get away from Chase Brown. Now, I know you asked me the question about Khalil Herbert, but if I have so much exposure to Chase Brown because we're projecting him extraordinarily well, that's going to mean that other running backs are not projecting well in the Bengals backfield. So it's only Chase Brown for me out of the Cincinnati backfield.
Yeah, that's ending up the way it's going to be, but no stone unturned here on the Showdown slates here. I want to thank everybody for watching. We're getting close to 1,000 live viewers. That is always fun on a Sunday night, especially with all of the games over. And so we're waiting for one more tonight. We do have a sponsor tonight. It is Underdog. So key things that you need to know about that is that if you go through the link in the YouTube description below us here, you can get a first deposit match up to $250. It's a 50% deposit match, so you would need to put in $500 to get that $250, but that is a pretty good deal. We also have one of our better deals, and we're going to talk about this again as well, because this deal is so good, and I don't know how much longer this deal is going to last, but this is how you can get the Sims here at Stokastic. So Jordan has the placeholder placard card up there on the screen. It's explaining what you need to do. We've got 11 different sports books and pick'em sites that we are offering this deal with right now. If you sign up through our links, got to go through our links here, but you can get to the page here and get to all 11. Any of these that you haven't signed up for, like Rebet is one I bet a lot of you haven't signed up for. If you sign up, follow the instructions that are on that page, make your deposit, make your first wager or pick'em card, send us a screenshot of that once it settles, plus your welcome email to support at stokastic.com, and you will get 1 month of the Sims sport of your choice for each of the sites that you sign up via this methodology, and we will stack those for you. So let's say, I want to get 3 more months of football. You can do that. Sign up for 3 of these. You can sign up for, you can get football for 1 month. You can get basketball for another if you sign up for 2. It's a very good deal. It's not going to be around forever, but jump on this one while it is still there. The passing game here for Cincinnati has a huge boost with T. Higgins returning to the fold tonight, Greg. He has missed several games this season. He has not played since week 7. He was dealing with a sore quad. He has, in his time on the field, when he has played with Jamar Chase, Higgins actually has 45 targets in weeks 3 through 7, while Jamar Chase has 37. Now, that's still a relatively small sample size, and we need to think that Higgins is getting some of the closer and mid-range targets while Chase is tending to go downfield. We got to see Chase go nuclear on Thursday Night Football. That was partially because he was the only show in town. But T. Higgins, there's no way he's coming back too early. And I say that as like all of you. We have at least 2 showdown games where he was playing hurt, we didn't know about it, and then he barely played. With his contract situation, I don't think he's taking the field until he feels he's totally ready to go. So I feel confident in him tonight. That's going to make Trenton Irwin kind of slide to the background. Andre Yoshibas, for what, he has 4 or 5 touchdowns. He only has 35 targets on the season. He just does not seem to get much. He's going to be out on the field, but no Charlie Jones. So that leaves rookie Jermaine Burton in there as well. But he is kind of a wild card, barely getting any work. They were ramping him up, and then he missed a practice or a team mandatory team event. He got suspended for a week, and then he came back last week. It's just a debacle over there in Cincinnati. But I really like Higgins being back. Greg, how is your read on this? I think he is probably a better point per dollar option than Jamar Chase tonight.
I mean, sure, points per dollar. Part of that, though, is because Jamar Chase is so outrageously expensive. He's $12,000 in the flex spot. So he's definitely a would like to have, but not a must have sort of player because of some of the cost issues that come with him. So I agree with you on a points per dollar basis. I would rather have T. Higgins than Jamar Chase. But if I could pick one of them and the salary wasn't an issue, then I would lean more towards Chase. As far as my exposures, I do have a little bit more of T. Higgins just because of the price point difference between the two. I really hope this isn't another just nuclear performance from Jamar Chase because to what you had said before there, EMac, he is so expensive that I have him right now in 25% of lineups in the flex, and in the captain spot, I have 9% of them. So overall, I have Jamar Chase in 33% of my lineups. I would like to have more of him, but the cost is just making it really difficult, especially in that captain spot on DraftKings with the multiplier price. You're paying $18,000 for him there.
Yeah, it tends to be a little bit of sticker shock here. And while his efficiency is likely to go up with Higgins drawing more attention from the defense, the volume can go down. Chase is one of the top 3 receivers in the league. So, he is essentially matchup proof, but we do have to play with the salary cap here in daily fantasy. We turn our attention here to the tight ends as we round out the Cincinnati offensive options here. So important things to note, Gesicki in the games without Higgins. So in the 4 games without him, he has 8, 6, in the last 3 games without him, 8, 6, and 9 looks. That is probably going to slide away from him a little bit because now Higgins is back taking some of those shorter target opportunities. Doesn't mean Gesicki's not going to be out there, but now there's another much better option. This also is probably going to push things away from Tanner Hudson, who somehow popped up for a season-high 29 snaps on Thursday Night Football. Drew Sample's still going to be floating around there. He is kind of their blocking tight end. Tanner Hudson is more or less kind of a Mike Gesicki clone, per se, less of an inline tight end and more of a slot type receiver, though he is nominally a tight end. Actually started his career out as a quarterback and a punter, if I remember correctly, at a small college way back in the day. So how are we talking about Tanner Hudson? That's because Eric All Jr. is out after injuring his knee. He was their rookie 4th round draft pick out of Iowa. He tore his knee up, his right ACL, his senior season, and he injured that last week. So he is not going to be available tonight. He hurt himself in week 9. Mm-hmm. So Gesicki was kind of a discount dandy darling for a couple of weeks there in the DFS world. I do not think that is going to be the case tonight. That's just the impact of Higgins coming back into the mix here. What are your thoughts if you would like to put a bow on the Cincinnati skill position players?
Yeah. So one thing also, we did get a question in Discord. So who was that from? That was a question from Nick Rue. So Nick, yeah, sorry, question. I'll answer that in a second. But as far as the skill position players go for the Bengals, I said before, Chase Brown, my number one by a mile in terms of the amount of exposure that I am getting. And then behind him, the player that I'm getting the second most of, it actually is T. Higgins, followed by Jamar Chase. I don't have that much of any of the other skill position players, though, EMac. It's really just those three. Those are the only three on Cincinnati I have more than 20% exposure to. And that's the order for me. Real tiers to it: Chase Brown, T. Higgins, then Jamar Chase.
All right. Yeah, let's hit Nick Rue's question. Which cheap option do you prefer? He's looking at a couple here for the I almost did it. I almost did it, Greg. I was going to say the San Diego side because the alliteration was just so beautiful. We're going to go back and just rewind that. Jordan will take that out in post-production. We're going to go with the Chargers here, but we've got Davis or Jalen Reagor. So Reagor, I thought, was going to lose time with DJ Chark coming back. Chark is inactive. Davis is kind of their emergency receiver. He is their punt returner and kick returner. Every now and then he gets a designed play, but it makes you're hoping he's going to get a special teams touchdown, and that makes it really tough to go with him. If you don't want to take the theoretical zero, you would go with Reagor, though you may take a real zero for Reagor because he's unlikely to get more than 2 targets. So here we are dumpster diving. I'm going to throw one other person in the mix. Sure. Smart, the tight end there. Now that Hayden Hurst is inactive, I would kind of start to consider Smart. Again, I'm willing to take a zero from that spot. I'm guessing you are as well, Nick.
I'm Greg. I don't even know who the hell Nick is.
No, Nick Rue. Nick, I'm willing. Nick, you are willing to take a zero in this spot, Greg.
Yeah.
How would you approach it?
Yeah. No. So getting back
Jordan,
to
stop it, Jordan. This is Eric McPherson, not Eric Lindquist. You stop that right now. Okay, Greg, you can continue.
We need some photoshopped images or a GIF, Jordan, potentially of. I have a really good idea, but I don't want EMac. I would rather EMac see it for the first time, but we know about it in advance. I'll text it to you. It'll be good. But anyway,
I'm looking forward to whatever this is.
So if you look at the payoff options we have on the slate, there's a lot of them that I think we'd want to be getting to. Both the quarterbacks, Chase Brown, who is also, not the most expensive player on the slate, but still $9,600 in the flex. And also keep in mind, the guys that we are about to be talking about here, as far as punt plays, this is only relevant to DraftKings. These super cheap guys, like you wouldn't consider Smart or ironically, Smart. I don't know if you realize he spells Smart wrong. There's 2 T's at the end of it. So Stone Smart, I agree with you. He's in play for me. Overall, though, I do have a decent amount of exposure to Jalen Reagor. He's in north of 20% of my lineups, barely pulling over 10% ownership. And it's not because of any kind of, we've got him projected for like 3 fantasy points. So it's not that he's somebody who's cheap that we've got as some exceptional value play. It's because he is the most acceptable cheap value option, to the point you made before. We could count on him to be on the field and at least get some targets. Over the last few games, we've seen him get 1, 2, 2, and 1 target across the last 4. And if somebody is $600, if he could have 1 or 2 catches, and if those catches could go for 15, 20 yards, you get 4 or 5 fantasy points out of him. And then say Jamar Chase goes off. And if Jamar Chase goes off, it stands to reason Joe Burrow probably went off. And if Chase Brown's going to have a good game, all of a sudden you need to be saving salary somewhere. And then it's just, who is the cheap guy who looks the most acceptable? And that's where Jalen Reagor fits the bill for me. So I do have over 20% of him at $600. He allows me to make some stars and scrubs lineups to fit in the studs in this game.
Right. For what it's worth, I do have Stone Smart in my cash game lineup. So
there we go.
That was what allowed me some different flexibilities there. And that way I was able to go up to Burrow and I didn't have to go with Chase Brown. So for those wondering, there still are some team free money. Head-to-heads, DK Lobby, username EMac. Let's talk about Justin Herbert. Pretty cool that he has an 11-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. That's darn near flawless. However, the volume just not there. That makes it really tough. He has 20 or fewer pass attempts in 3 of his starts. He is averaging about 210 passing yards per game. That's down in the very middle of the pack, if not slightly lower. That's well below his 270 yards per career game. Obviously, no Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams, new coach, new offensive coordinator. That's kind of changed everything here. The hope is that Cincinnati can put some points on the board against this amazing scoring defense, the top scoring defense in the league. Is the Chargers. They're allowing 13.1 points per game, but you've got the Bengals that have a huge 27 points per game on their own. So we're hoping to draw out more opportunities here for Justin Herbert. The other thing that has been noted across the industry in a variety of platforms over the last 4 games, I almost did San Diego again. The Chargers have their pass rate over expectation increasing, which is a good sign as they head into what ideally is a matchup against an opponent that is going to put points on the board. So I think Herbert has a chance to outperform what he has done recently, as well as his salary. So he's an intriguing option. I like him better in the flex, not in the captain spot, because again, just 11 touchdowns on the year. We know they're going to want to go to Gus Edwards or J.K. Dobbins in the red zone. That makes it hard if you have a captain doesn't have a shot at multiple touchdowns, especially a non-running quarterback, like Greg pointed out earlier. What are your thoughts on Herbert?
Yeah, so between the two quarterbacks, I do prefer Joe Burrow to Justin Herbert. And if you look at the field's exposure, there's not really that much of a difference between the two. We've got Joe Burrow projected for 50% ownership. We've got Justin Herbert at 48.5% ownership. That's in the flex spot. Then in the captain spot, we've got Justin Herbert 11% owned, Joe Burrow 8.6% owned. So it's really which of the two QBs in the game is it that you prefer? Because the ownership's about the same. You're paying a little bit more for Joe Burrow, the $1,200 more. But yeah, I prefer Joe Burrow here. EMac, he's got more weapons around him. We've got Chase Brown, who's going to be somebody who's capable of scoring PPR points. He's got T. Higgins to throw the ball to. He's got Jamar Chase to throw the ball to. And then another thing, too, when it comes to Justin Herbert is earlier in the year, the Chargers were not really throwing the ball all that often. There was a number of things that I think that could be attributed to. And I thought we were going to start to see Herbert throwing the ball more often and more regularly. And we just didn't get that last week. It seemed like things were trending upwards, and they went right back to the volume we saw at the beginning of the season, where he was 14 of 18 pass attempts for 164 yards last week. He's another quarterback also doesn't bring a lot of rushing upside to the table. He's only got 2 games this year with 20 plus rushing yards. So I think there's considerably more upside in Joe Burrow. I have more exposure to him. I'm overweight to the field on Burrow, and I am right about even with the field on Justin Herbert.
All right, fair enough. Looking to the running game here for the Chargers, they've got it's been the J.K. Dobbins show. He has performed admirably, especially after dealing with a myriad of serious injuries in his time at Baltimore. So it was a little bit of a surprise that he has continued to play so well and not gotten dinged up. So I suspect with Gus Edwards coming back, that we're going to see, I would be shocked if you get more than 12 to 15 carries for Dobbins. Like 15 would be on the high side. Figure he'll get about a dozen unless it's a really close game, because they're going to start giving some of those carries to Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards has 1 lonely target on the year. That is not very many. He has played in his 5 games where he has been available. He has been on the field for 102 snaps, just 1 target in that time. But he does get a fair share of the running play or touches as a running back or as the ball carrier when he's on the field, because he gets some of that early down work. So Eric Lindquist pointed him out as a interesting touchdown option at plus 230 for an anytime score. Greg, my book, I only have one of them here in Florida, the bet or the Hard Rock. It's only plus 200. Everything is like 15 to 20 points lower when you are dealing with a monopoly with the company here, as opposed to having free market. Very disappointing here. But
the Seminole tribe, the big gang in Florida.
That it is. The running back 3 is Hassan Haskins. He is essentially a special teamer. So Kimani Vidal was inactive yet again now that Edwards is back. The one thing about Dobbins is not really been getting a lot of passing work. But again, when you have a quarterback that's barely throwing 25 times a game, there's just not enough PPR goodness to go around. So I am less enthralled by the Chargers backfield here. Do you have any positives to say? Because they are kind of expensive with both of them active.
No, I'm underweight to the field on Dobbins. If I had to roster Dobbins or Edwards, I prefer Dobbins even relative to his price point. But, earlier in the year, it looked like Dobbins was going to have a crazy bounce back season because you consider the terrible injuries he's had the last couple of years. He's had to come back from the knee injury. He had to come back from the torn Achilles. And then he opens up the season 10 carries for 135 yards, 17 carries for 131 yards. And all the narrative is, what, J.K. Dobbins, he might end up leading the league in rushing. People are playing J.K. Dobbins like crazy for the first few weeks of the season after all of that. And then he just really dramatically fell off a cliff. He's only averaged EMac over 4 yards per carry in one game since the second week of the season. So if you look at his numbers overall for the year, it's, wow, he's towards the top of the league in rushing, 670 yards. He's averaging 4.8 yards per carry, but almost all of that production came in the first couple of weeks of the season. That makes up a third of his rushing yards. It makes up all of his efficiency. And he's had such a steep drop off since then. I don't know if it's because teams are focusing on J.K. Dobbins more, where earlier in the year he was kind of more of an afterthought, but it hasn't been pretty for him. It's a fairly easy matchup going up against the Bengals. But with all that said, I have a lot more exposure to the Bengals side of the game than the Chargers. The Chargers guys that I am rostering, it generally is cheaper guys to enable me to pay up for the expensive guys from the Bengals. So as far as Dobbins goes, I have about half of what the field has. We have him 33% in the flex spot. He's projected for 8% ownership in the captain spot, and I have less than 20% of them. So actually slightly less than half the field.
All right, let's hit the pass catchers. Again, we've mentioned the volume is just not there in this offense, but tonight we could see a little bit more if Cincinnati does their part. Will Dissly, former Seattle Seahawk, is second on the team with 42 targets, but he has not yet scored a touchdown. He has a career low 8.2 yards per catch. That is not good for a tight end. That is more like a running back numbers. So that is a little bit tough. Hayden Hurst played just 17 snaps in the last two games. He's inactive tonight, but that's because Stone Smart has been able to return. He was inactive because he was dealing with injuries. So random appearance by Tucker Fisk last week, 23 snaps, no offensive looks, but so we don't want to worry about him. But now it's kind of Stone Smart backing up Will Dissly, which is what makes Smart an intriguing option. Even if he gets only a target or two and doesn't make a catch, it would still, air quote, pay off his fantasy number there on DraftKings. So those are your kind of a very empty cupboard here when it comes to the pass catchers. On the receivers, Quentin Johnson somehow has worked his way into the wide receiver too. Yes, that helps because Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are no longer with the team, but he has actually surpassed Josh Palmer. That's truly a surprise. I did not think we would see that happen. It has been rookie Ladd McConkey who has become the trusted option. He has 40%, 54 of the 136 targets that have gone to the wide receivers, 40% have gone to him. So he is an intriguing point per dollar play. Touchdown equity, not a lot, but the point per dollar and the PPR and point per dollar is there for him to kind of work through things. How do you feel about this? Because one of the, in reading a few industry notes out there from a variety of sources, they have said Quentin Johnson does have an above average matchup as an outside receiver going against the Bengals. But I don't know that I want to trust Quentin Johnson. What are your thoughts here, Greg?
Yeah, so Quentin Johnston is a little bit expensive. He's $7K in the flex over on DraftKings. Quentin Johnston's price over on FanDuel is, let's see, what was the price on FanDuel? He is, it would help if I was not looking at the main slate here. Let me go back to the other page. So Quentin Johnston, as I'm talking, I'll look this up. But Quentin Johnston is 10K over on FanDuel. So points per dollar, I think he's a little bit overpriced on both FanDuel and DraftKings. But here's where he makes sense as a GPP option to me. He's not all that popular. He's pulling right around 20% ownership. And he's somebody that we've seen with really big game upside this year. So if he doesn't catch a touchdown pass, he's most likely going to shit the bed and just be a horrific option. But with that said, he's caught 5 touchdowns overall for the season. We've also seen him have as many as 118 receiving yards a couple games ago. So he's a massive boom bust option who, because he's a little bit overpriced, is not really getting ownership for a 1-game slate today. This is the kind of guy that I want to be playing in tournaments on these really small, high variance slates, because there's a lot of touchdown equity. He's somebody who Justin Herbert likes to throw the ball to when they get down to the red zone. He's got big play upside as well. So Quentin Johnston, I like him for GPPs.
Would you play him in the multiplier slot?
I don't think so. I don't think I have any exposure to him in the captain. I definitely wouldn't play him in the MVP on FanDuel. As far as DraftKings in the captain spot, I have a couple lineups with them. Wouldn't be a priority. If you're playing 20 lineups, I think it's reasonable to have one of them with Quentin Johnston and maybe 5% or so across 100 plus lineups. If you're somebody who just plays 1, 2, 3 lineups, then that would be a no for Quentin Johnston. But at almost no ownership in the captain spot, yeah, large field GPPs, I'm overweight to the field.
The other one that's popping up, I've just run my sims here. This is part of the Stokastic product that you guys can get. We talked about how you can get those via the link join that Jordan posted on the screen. That is also in the YouTube description below us here. That is a great way to get in with basically no cost to you other than signing up for one of these 11 sites you have not yet signed up for, following a little elbow grease to take a screenshot or two, make a deposit, settle your wager, send that off to Stokastic, and News God will hook you up with your Stokastic Sims subscription for any sport of your choice for 1 month. That is support at stokastic.com. Will Dissly, I've got 60% of him in my utility spot here. I had 30% of him in the multiplier slot. I capped him at 10. I just can't. I can't go there. He's a tight end. Tight end magic happens on Showdown slates. He doesn't have a touchdown yet this year. He could get it. He used to be a Seahawk. The Seahawks are my favorite team, but I still don't want to go with him here. 60% feels like an awful lot. Would you put your thumb on the scale to adjust something like that, where we're 2x the field on someone that does not really have more than 12 fantasy point upside?
No, and I mean, Doug Dubs in the chat, I'm seeing him saying as well that he can't get away from Will Dissly. It's just that he's a really good value option on a slate that doesn't have that many good mid-range or cheap options. So you got the kickers. I always like getting some exposure to the kickers. I'm overweight to both Cameron Dicker as well as Evan McPherson. So that is, by the way, the name eerily similar to yours. Coincidence? Probably. So Cameron Dicker, Evan McPherson, I like both the kickers. But outside of them, I'm trying to figure out where I want to save salary. If I'm punting, I go to Jalen Reagor more often than not. I don't have that much confidence in Gus Edwards' workload, but I get some exposure to him. And then it's who else am I going to go to for salary savings? I can't only be rostering the 2 kickers. As much as I like them, I need other guys that also fit into lineups. And Will Dissly is the other guy here. So Dissly, to your point, Lofty, he doesn't have the most immense upside. He hasn't caught a touchdown pass this year. But I do think that if you look at the overall data on him this season, just the amount of targets he's drawing, I think that he probably should be somebody who's caught touchdowns to this point this season. He's got 5 or more targets in 5 of the last 6 games, 4 of the last 5 games. He's been very involved in the offense. Last week, he caught 5 of 6 targets for 30 yards. The week before that against the Browns is a little bit of a blowout, and they didn't have to throw the ball too much. Now, if you look at some of the other games as well, 7 targets against the Saints, 11 targets against the Cardinals, 5 targets against Denver. It's a pretty good amount of volume for a guy who isn't all that expensive.
All right, fella, come on. It's my shtick to get names wrong, not yours. I'm not Dave Lochran.
What happened?
You called me Lofty. I'm honored.
Did I call? I didn't even catch that. Did I say lost?
Yes. Oh, Chad caught it. Jordan caught it.
I didn't
Odell
realize I said that
Beckham
at all.
style. I caught that one. So
Didn't notice it. Didn't notice it. And
good
are you
times.
sure you're not kicking today, Evan McPherson?
Slight different. One letter in the first name, one letter in the last name, different. But he does actually get extra points in my lineup. And I tried to draft him in season-long leagues because I would say I was drafting myself. So we do got to mention kickers here. So he's actually an adequate kicker. The volume hasn't quite been there, which is sort of skewing some of his results this season. He's missed 4 of his 17 field goal attempts. All 3 from beyond 50 yards. The other one was a 47-yard miss. So he's missing from distance tonight. Remember, it's in Los Angeles, so it's in that covered, controlled atmosphere arena. So that should help him there. He's a 4-year veteran, and getting to kick inside instead of being in his home stadium or the AFC North should be rather helpful. And then Cameron Dicker, I mean, that's a great name for a kicker as well. He is... let's see. This will be his 38th game overall. In his career, he is 71 of 76. So that is almost a 94% conversion rate. That is very, very good. He is 11 of 15 from beyond 50. That's a 73% conversion rate. So we liked both kickers today. This is the stadium in Los Angeles is a good kicking environment. And then special teams, and then we'll have 10 minutes left here. Cincinnati's allowing almost 2.5 sacks per game. But Burrow has at least 3 sacks in 6 of his 10 games. So when things go sideways for Cincy, they go sideways in a big way because, as Greg mentioned, Burrow not really a rushing quarterback, but he does hang on to the ball. He does scramble around the pocket, and he's even said, I'm willing to take a sack. I'm not that worried about it. The last time I said he wasn't a good rushing quarterback in my article, Greg, he scampered up the sideline for 47-yard touchdown. I think that was Thursday Night Football Week 6, if I remember correctly. That single carry was his all-time high for yardage in a game. And then he had 3 or 4 other carries there. He ended with 55. But to your point, for his career, he only averages about 10 or 11 yards per game. It's not a lot. And then when we look to
a couple of super chats.
Okay, let me just wrap up, Sandy. The Bengals here. 17 sacks in the last, or 17 sacks have been allowed here by Cincinnati. By the Chargers. That's the 3rd fewest in the league. So important to note that. Hit those super chats where I'm going to upload my lineups real quick.
Yeah. So first shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out the 5 YouTube memberships. Chris, thank you as always for supporting the channel. And everybody else, as Chris always says, the best way to get yourself some good karma, you hit the like button. You subscribe to the YouTube channel. It does wonders for your DFS lineups. For every single time you hit the like button, your lineups score 1% more fantasy points. So just go and jam that like button. Then Nathan Perkins wants to know who our favorite captains are for today. Yeah, so for me, it's by a mile on DraftKings. Chase Brown is the guy to get to. I actually have him in a third of my lineups as the captain. He's my favorite overall pay-up option to get to at the captain spot. If you're looking to save salary, I don't have any punt options that I really have meaningful exposure to, but going back to Will Dissly, I have 9% of a little bit overweight to the field on him, so I like him as an option in the captain spot. And then if you're talking about the FanDuel side of things, where this is a little bit different of elements to bring into it, where there is no multiplier to the salaries, but I still do like getting to Chase Brown. Chase Brown is 11,500 over on FanDuel. So also my overall favorite play on FanDuel. He's just overpriced in general. I meant to say underpriced in general. So Chase Brown, my favorite multiplier option on both FanDuel as well as DraftKings. Run into the same issues with Jamar Chase in terms of his price point, $16,500 over on FanDuel, a little bit prohibitive. So for sure, Chase Brown is one of them for me. Joe Burrow, another one, especially where there's no PPR bonus that makes quarterbacks a little bit more favorable on the FanDuel side of things. So Chase Brown, Joe Burrow, and there's no need to really punt for any real reason at the MVP spot on FanDuel.
When you are doing these, the sims, do you limit the number of dupes for Showdown in your filters?
No, Sims take care of it for me. Another part of it too is depending which contest it is that you're playing in. the dupes aren't necessarily as problematic, especially if it's a flatter payout. So I assume a lot of you guys are probably playing something like the mini max over on DraftKings, where there's, the 50-cent contest that have 150 lineups. Those only are 10% to first. So it's really flat payout structures. So you don't have to prioritize quite as much being crazy unique in those. But I trust the Sims to weed out the heavily duped lineups that aren't good. You could have lineups that are expected to be duped. Looking at some of my top lineups, I have one of these lineups is projected to be duped as many as 13 times across 10,000 lineups. And obviously these contests have more than 10,000 lineups in them. So if you were to figure like a 50,000 person contest times the 13 dupes, instead of be looking at like 50 to 60 dupes, I don't want any of the lineups, EMac, that are expected to be duped like 30 to 40 times, but those almost never show up anyway.
Okay, I was curious with the number because today I'm seeing a little more, like almost all the lineups appear to be duped in some form or fashion up at the top, but they're in the, the 3, the 5, but I saw a lot of 7, 8, 9, 10, which I usually don't see that number on these. So I was just kind of curious here in what we do. All right, let me get these uploaded and we'll be good to go. I did end up capping Disley. He just kept coming in on way too many of my captain spots. I set that at 10%,
Okay.
but I we'll be riding in style with Disley tonight, it looks like. All right, that filter is not working, so we're just going to upload these as is. 5 minutes until
what are you trying to filter there, EMac?
I'm in Excel and it's not behaving correctly. I like to randomize mine a little bit because I go across a variety of contests.
Here's something you can do.
Types.
Do you know about the uniques feature in The Sims now?
Mm.
That'll randomize your lineups for you. Go put in. I mean, you can only do so many uniques for Showdown because there's only so many players. But if you set it to 1 or 2 uniques, you'll get pretty diversified lineups for Showdown.
All right. Normally I just put the random function in Excel and I flip it a couple times just to shake things up because I tend to play the ticket contests. I tend to play triple ups, quints, in addition to the mini maxes and the 20 caps, etc. So I usually like to sort those by dollar and type, and then I mix up my portfolio so I end up with one lineup in a bunch of boosters or in a bunch of winner take alls, and it doesn't do anything for me. So that is sort of my strategy. 4 minutes to go here. Let me get back to the chat. I want to thank everybody. If you have not yet hit the like button, please do so. I see So Tex is looking for that. So Tex, hopefully you grab one of those lineups because you've been doing rather well against me. You and Melissa have been picking on me. Guitar Z-Man, yes, staggering those lineups is key. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No elderly abuse, guys. Don't be mean to EMac. Don't beat him up. Don't make him look like.
Are we going to get an Ensure or Metamucil or something as a sponsor here?
Actually, a sad thing, Ensure, because I used to drink those when I was sick to try to, because it's just like extra calories and protein. Right. And then I became really lactose intolerant. I became too much of a pussy to drink Ensures, which is very pathetic.
So you're just drinking those prune juice cocktails. Okay, I got it. I see where you're at here. Nothing really coming in from chat. Let me look and see here. Yeah, CG like in chat, they're also saying, yep, I've got some Disley captains as well. So hey, who knows? Perhaps this will be something fun. Yeah, I did get my lineups in, Jordan. So that did work out. Tonight, I tried to prepare for this. So that was important. Lineups are the only thing that EMac could get. Well, all right, thank you.
Our hopes. He could get our hopes up.
I can get your hopes up. I saw my first alligator in the pond right next to our house on Thursday. Did you know that pretty much any body of water, if you touch it and it's wet, it has an alligator in it here in Florida?
I believe that's true on average. I don't think it's literally true where every single body of water has an alligator in it, but I do think it is true that each one is expected to have an alligator, and you should assume it, which is, it's good. Better safe than sorry, right? We don't want Mac showing up with half a face or something.
No, it'd be very scary. So yeah, very scary if that happens. Good. Nothing is breaking at the moment. We seem to be doing pretty solid here. So as we wind things down, I want to remind everybody about the Stokastic Hall of Fame. That is the other way you can get some free Stokastic content here. If you go to the link that Jordan will be dropping into chat here, go to the stokastic.com/Hall of Fame, download one of those nifty avatars of your choosing, upload that to your favorite DFS site as your avatar. And if you finish top 3 in any contest with at least 5,000 people in it, top 3, first, second, or third, no chops. If you tie 150 people tonight in Showdown, that's not going to count, even if you are first. But first, second, or third, tweet your wins with the screenshot and that Stokastic avatar visible to Stokastic HOF on Twitter, and you will get into the Stokastic Hall of Fame. Laffy will induct you. We have several tiers now. We have bronze, silver, and gold. Each one gets you a slightly different prize. If you win $20,000 or more in one of your contests, you will be in the Ring of Honor. You get the really cool rings that are in the display case that rotate around with an homage to your victory. It's a pretty good deal, and you can win a couple times a year now. We've expanded that because when you do all of this, you get 1 month of Stokastic Premium for free. That is a very, very impressive value for you all. So check that out. And we are at lock. So that is it.
Fast. I went fast.
Just a quick 45, 50 minutes on these shows.
And I did it with a tummy full of Chinese food.
Nice. What was your favorite?
Well,
what's your go-to dish?
I got chicken and broccoli.
Chicken and broccoli. That's not very Chinese, is it? Like, you know, chow mein, lo mein, General Tso's, hand-shaven noodles, none of that good stuff. Yakisoba.
I don't know. I've never been to China before. I just know. And I mean, the food doesn't even taste supposedly like it does in China. So we get the American Chinese food, which is more or less
Mandarin. Is it Szechuan? What do we got going on here?
It's Chinese food.
This is important stuff. This is like going to China Deli at Safeway.
It's the one down the street. It's the one closest to me. It's good though. It's good. There actually is a traditional Chinese food place in my town that serves actual food like they make in China, and it's terrible to me. It's not the Chinese food that we eat here in America.
It's not deep fried. Have you ever been to dim sum before? Like where they bring all the unique, like the chicken feet and different stuff like that, beef tripe, and
no, I have no interest in that either.
Yeah, it's interesting. But more of those places. When I lived in Seattle, I wouldn't know where there's any in Florida. But hey, those are always fun. All right. Well, with that, we're going to get on out of here. You guys can follow Greg on Twitter at @GEhrenbergDFS. You can find me at EMac DFS. And of course, it is Stokastic_COM. Tune in tomorrow as we do this all over again. We've got NHL, we've got NBA, we've got Monday Night Football. It's going to be a good one. With that, gamers, good luck.